He was the future of darts, a champion before his prime, a fan favorite with swagger, skill, and star power. But at just 30 years old, Dimitri van den Bergh didn't just slow down, he vanished. No injury, no goodbye, no explanation. One day he was on the tour, the next, completely gone. And the truth behind his disappearance? It's darker, deeper, and way more explosive than anyone expected. Dimitri van den Bergh didn't come from a darts dynasty. He wasn't born into the sport or mentored by legends. He built his reputation from scratch, a young kid from Belgium who played with passion, precision, and a kind of flair the sport hadn't seen in years. By 26, he'd already stunned the world by winning the 2020 World Match Play. 4 years later, he lifted the UK Open trophy like it was routine. These aren't small titles. These are career-defining victories, and he'd claimed both before most players even hit their peak. But it wasn't just about the wins. Dimitri had something else. Presence, the walk-ons, the energy, the confidence without arrogance. He wasn't just good at darts, he was entertainment. You could feel the shift when he played. The crowd leaned in. The cameras followed him longer. He wasn't just becoming a champion, he was becoming the face of a new era. But while the world watched him rise, something else was already unraveling behind the scenes. At first, the cracks were subtle. A few missed interviews here, a withdrawn performance there. Dimitri started pulling out of small events without much explanation. When he did show up, he seemed off, low energy, distant, like his mind was somewhere else. Fans chalked it up to stress or travel fatigue, but those closer to the scene noticed more. There were whispers of backstage arguments, not just with players, but with officials. Rumors spread about growing tension with PDC leadership over the brutal tour schedule and a lack of support for players dealing with mental pressure. One story claimed he nearly came to blows with another top pro after a televised event, right behind the curtain, just out of camera shot. It wasn't just poor form, it felt personal. Something was eating at him, and it wasn't going away. And then, without warning, everything came to a head, in the most bizarre way imaginable. April 2025. Dmitri was scheduled to face Joseph Duza in a Players' Championship match. But then, nothing. No Dmitri, no announcement, just an empty stage and confusion. At first, people assumed a delay, maybe an injury, maybe an emergency. But then word started spreading backstage. Dmitri had pulled out. Not for health reasons, not because of travel. He was just gone. No statement, no contact, not even a text to his manager. His phone switched off. For a sport built on routine and structure, this kind of disappearance was unheard of. Top players don't just vanish minutes before a match, especially not someone like Dmitri, who had everything to lose. The silence only fueled the fire, and soon the theories started flying. The internet lit up. Was he injured? Did he have a breakdown? Did something happen backstage that the cameras didn't catch? One theory claimed he'd had a major falling out with a senior PDC figure, a confrontation so intense he snapped and walked. Another rumor suggested legal trouble or a deeply personal issue involving someone close to him. Some speculated he was being blackmailed, while others said he'd been caught up in some kind of internal power struggle with sponsors or the Belgian national setup. But none of it was confirmed. The media went quiet. The PDC gave no details. And Dmitri himself? Total silence. Then, a week later, fellow pro Vincent van der Voort broke the wall. In a candid interview, he revealed what many feared, that Dmitri was in a bad place mentally. Burnout, anxiety, emotional exhaustion. And according to van der Voort, it had been building for months. Still, no one expected what Dmitri would say when he finally spoke for himself. When Dmitri finally broke the silence, it wasn't through a press conference or a carefully crafted PR statement. It was raw, honest, and surprisingly quiet. He admitted the truth outright. He was drowning. The pressure, the travel, the expectations, it had all become too much. Not just for him, but for his family. His exact words hit hard.
You're back full time now? Sabbatical over?
No, this is me being back managing my career. Because a full-time professional is just not good for my family. I've got a second kid coming on next month, so
Being a full-time pro just doesn't work for my family right now. I've got a second kid coming next month. This is me managing my career. Full-time professional is just not good for my family. He didn't blame the PDC, he didn't play the victim, he just said what no one else dared to. The grind was wrecking him. The constant tournaments, the flights, the media, the pressure to always perform, it wasn't just a lifestyle, it was a trap. Fans were stunned. Here was a guy who had it all: trophies, talent, charisma, walking away not because he had to, but because he wanted to. Because staying in the game under its current demands was destroying his peace. But not everyone believed the story, and the rumors, they were far from over. To many fans, Dimitri's honesty was brave, even refreshing, but others weren't so convinced. The internet doesn't do compassion for long, and soon the narrative started to twist. Some called his explanation a smokescreen, a carefully worded cover-up for something bigger. Behind closed doors, whispers continued. Some insiders claimed Dmitri had clashed with sponsors over contract obligations, appearance fees, or branding control. Others said he'd fallen out with his own management team, disagreements about which events to play, how to market himself, and even what his long-term goals should be. And then there was the Belgian national team drama. Rumors surfaced about selection disputes, internal politics, even arguments with fellow players over who truly represented Belgium's future. No one on record confirmed it, but the tension was reportedly thick enough to split camps within the team. The picture wasn't clean. It wasn't just burnout, it was a storm, part personal, part professional. And the mental health explanation, while real, might have only been part of the truth. Then, just when fans thought he was done for good, he showed up again and proved he still had it. 2 months after his mysterious exit, Dmitri reappeared. And it wasn't just a quiet cameo. He suited up for the World Cup of Darts, teaming with Mike de Decker to represent Belgium. Fans held their breath. Was this the moment he returned for good? And then, he dominated. Cool under pressure, electric on the stage. It was the old Dmitri, the dream maker, like nothing had ever happened. The crowd erupted. Social media buzzed. People were already talking comeback. But once the match was over, he shut it down. No tour return, no major announcement, just a clear, personal boundary. I'll still play some events, but on my terms. If it doesn't work with my family life, I'm out. I'd rather give 100% to 5 tournaments than 20% to 50. This wasn't a comeback, it was a warning. A shot across the bow of the entire darts industry. He wasn't done with darts, he was done with the system. And that's when people stopped asking, what's wrong with Dmitri? And started asking, what's wrong with the sport? Dimitri's decision wasn't just a personal choice, it was a wake-up call. Because if a player like him, young, successful, adored, could burn out this fast, what did that say about the system he walked away from? The PDC calendar is relentless. Week after week, tournament after tournament, barely any time to breathe, let alone recover. Behind the scenes, players talk about it all the time. Sleepless travel, zero mental health support, and the quiet pressure to push through injuries, anxiety, and personal chaos just to keep ranking points and sponsorship deals alive. And suddenly, Dimitri's story didn't feel so isolated. Fans started looking back. Other top players had dropped in form, pulled out of events, or quietly disappeared for stretches. Some were labeled lazy, others inconsistent. But now, people were wondering if they were just exhausted. Dmitri wasn't throwing a tantrum. He was throwing a spotlight on a system built to churn out matches, not protect its players. And whether he meant to or not, he became a symbol, not of weakness, but of rebellion. And as the fallout spread, darts fans were left wondering, who's next? Dmitri didn't disappear because he was losing. He walked away while he was still winning, and that's what makes it so powerful. He chose peace over pressure, family over fame. And in doing so, he forced everyone to rethink what success really looks like. But his choice comes at a price. Because of his absence, Dmitri is missing nearly every major tournament this year. No World Match Play, no World Grand Prix, no Players' Championship Finals. These aren't just big events, they're the backbone of the darts calendar, the ones that define legacies. And he's sitting them out not because he can't play, but because he won't play on anyone else's terms. Some call that weakness, others call it the strongest move of his entire career. Dmitri still has the talent, still has the charisma, still has the fire to light up any stage in the world. But now, he controls the switch. He decides when and where he plays, and when he disappears again. So what happens next? Does he return in style, take another title, remind everyone who he is? Or does he fade into the background, quietly at peace with what he's already accomplished? One thing's certain, his story has left the darts world with more questions than answers. And sometimes, that's what makes a story unforgettable. What do you think? Was Dmitri right to walk away? Or is there still more to this story than anyone's letting on? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more deep dives into the hidden side of darts, from rivalries and breakdowns to rumors the media won't touch, hit that like button and subscribe, because we're just getting started.